We're talking to Mark now, who's calling from Pennsylvania. Mark, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Hi, Mark.
And right off the bat, I want to congratulate both of you gentlemen for dealing with what I thought was an absolutely ridiculous conversation with this gentleman, but you're trying to spread truth, and you're to be congratulated for that, because that was absolutely ridiculous.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, it should be said. You know, you're not Matt Dillahunty, who I respect a lot, but, you know, is boiling point very quickly. But my point to call originally was, as I spoke to Ian, and this is said with nothing but, you know, respect, that as you speak about lucid dreams, you verge on magic. That, you know, I truly believe, as somebody who has had dreams of my father, who passed away a decade ago, and my mom's on the verge, and she's in hospice, and you know, I have a lot of dreams about them, but I believe that the human brain on its own does contain all the engrams necessary for, you know, having dreams about stuff that's going on in your life. And it doesn't mean that, and I'm a comic book nerd, so there's this character, Doctor Strange, and his astral self, you know, rises up out of his body, and I just sort of think that, I'm like, this life is as great as it's going to get for us. And, you know, people leave, but you can't really see visions of something that's not there. I've had lucid dreams that I try to drive to have my dad talk to me a little bit longer. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I truly don't believe that we're capable of having some kind of conversation with, you know, the unknown.
Let's let Ian have a chance to respond, because I'm curious to Ian's response to this.
So first of all, absolutely, that is the only sane. I believe that what you're coming from, given your experience, it's the only sane response that you should have. That means that I would say that your brain is working perfectly normally. There's nothing wrong with that. And if I did, all I can say is that if I did not have my experiences, I would be exactly 100% with you, that consciousness is something that is somehow manifested inside the mind. It is something that is just perhaps a byproduct of the brain, of the thinking patterns. And all I can say is that, sorry. And so at this point, I would say that
the wonderful part of being live.
It
a little bit of a delay, so go ahead. You can keep going, Ian.
Okay, so
I just wanted to say that it's like, it's part of what's great about life is that our mind remembers what was awesome once upon a time.
Okay, yeah, it is amazing, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the stories that you've got. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the memories that you hold. What I'm pointing your attention to is to analyze what your relationship is with all of the stories that you carry. It's really comes down to as simple as that. And let me clarify something. When I talk about this idea of astral projection, again, I don't like that term because there's a narrative around that too, that for the most part, the spiritual community feels that they own these practices. And I'm trying to take it back. Darn it. That's kind of my attitude. Like, it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to truly everyone. I do not believe that there's some soul essence leaving my body during these experiences. I do not believe that actually anything moves outside of my body at all. What I'm suggesting is that for some reason, when I go into a specific state under very specific circumstances that I can impart to other people, I'm able to get information just like I would as if I was actually there. I'm able to tap into information from other places. Now, is that somehow connected to quantum entanglement? I have no idea. Is that somehow connected to some part of physics that we don't understand, something that's going on with our neurology? Perhaps. I couldn't tell you. But all I can say for myself is that I have had now so many experiences where I came back with so many specific details of what was going on in other places with friends, family, whatever. I've even seen places in towns that I just moved to that I was able to go to later, like, oh my God, that's where that barn. I know what's around inside this barn, and I know that they've got this house back behind it with a chicken coop and yada, yada, yada. You know, stuff like that, which again, I'm not saying that to try to convince anyone. I hope that you would not be convinced by those stories. My point is to explain that from where I'm at, there's no doubt that there's a quality to consciousness that it can, for some reason, it's not localized if you know how to unlocalize it. That's where I'm saying I do not believe that it's magic. I know it can sound like magic. That's why I'm talking about this, to clarify it, because it sounds very much like magic.
Go ahead, Mark.
No, I think you've explained it better this time around than you did at the beginning of the show. Not, to be like snarky or anything. Like, now I get it.
Good.
Good. It's just like, we're not talking about an eternal soul that lives forever because Jesus saved you and blah.
Oh gosh, no. No.
Irrational stuff. But during the time that you're alive, your experiences might be more expansive than what I myself am willing to admit or have experienced. Is that a good response?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. You haven't experienced these things. And this is, this is not something that is easy to clarify in one discussion or a million discussions. The last book that I wrote, I actually said in my last video, I do a whole video series on this. And at some point I had to realize and accept the fact that I can talk about this topic until my lungs give out, and when I'm 90 years old, and I still will have only scratched the surface with trying to describe this to someone else in a very specific way. My last book, Migration, it's like nearly 400 pages long, or maybe it's around 300. I'm sorry. I could have written 20 volumes of that, and again, I still would never have been able to explain exactly where I'm coming from. Because my general philosophy behind it, the way, and I keep on coming back to the way our consciousness interacts with narratives and interacts with storylines, I keep coming back to that. There's something about consciousness and storylines, that pattern, and that's what it is. Storylines and narratives are a pattern that consciousness is attracted to, you could say. Again, I'm being metaphorical. It's just one way to think about it. And that attraction does all kinds of strange things. It appears to make us localized.
I feel like, when you discuss things about what happens while we're here, it makes a lot more sense than talking about, some, unidentifiable sky god wizard, which is, I see no evidence of. But when you talk about the experiences of the human life, of the human condition, of the time that, you think there's a sacred plane, it's right here and it's right now. And when you talk about it like that, you make a much better point. And I appreciate speaking with you.
Fantastic.
There you go. Thanks, Mark. Thank you for calling in. Appreciate it. I love that. You got it. It's a different conversation when we're talking about the locality of consciousness,
right,
versus a soul being in the body or something like that.
And I don't buy that. I think that's it's another narrative that that the spiritualists, I would say, have been sold into this, and they have a whole storyline about how your chakras work, and that there's this silver thread that's connected to your soul, and you're actually projecting one of your chakras out of your body, and it just goes on. And all I can say is that the reason I believe that I was able to tap into this was because I came at all of this as a blank slate, and I'm trying to remain as a blank slate. I will not pick up another narrative. I don't want to add another storyline on top of it. All I can say is this is what I've experienced, with free as much as I can free my stories and my experiences from any of, like I said, the lingo or the stories. Now, and again, I'm misinterpreted all the time when I talk about this. They assume I'm talking about, they imagine, and you get your imagination working, like they imagine some soul leaving your body. I don't buy any of that. I'm saying that whatever consciousness is, whether it's some sort of wave or field, like the electromagnetic field on some level, I don't have those answers. I don't know what the nature of consciousness is. All I can tell you is I can tell you what I've experienced, and I can tell you what it appears to be able to do, and how it interacts specifically with our body, why we appear to be localized. So I'm trying to constantly undo that with my discussion. And so that's why I always throw it back to my viewers. Look, if you can follow my mechanics, and you tell me, well, what's happening for you now?
Yeah.